Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new revenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, Crazy Homeowners Association Enforcer Gets a Taste of Her Own Medicine. I'm house sitting at the moment for my cousin. He and his boyfriend live in a pretty swanky neighborhood full of McMansions. Nothing too fancy, just your common upper middle class suburban development. Anyhow, over the past few weeks they've been having a new porch installed on the back of the house. The crew has a trailer parked out front so they can lock up their tools at night. No big deal, right? Apparently it is. This evening I get a knock on the door. I'm always wary of solicitors, so I make it a point to look out the window before answering the door. After hearing the doorbell, it takes me a minute to get to the window. As I look outside, I see a woman walking away with two little dogs. One of the dogs stops and proceeds to poop on my cousin's lawn. I wait until the dog is done and open the door. By this time the woman is beginning to walk away, but she sees me and turns around. She introduces herself as a board member of the HOA Homeowners Association. She looks very annoyed. Without taking a breath, she launches into a lecture about the trailer parked out front, how she's lucky to have walked by and caught this egregious violation of the HOA rules, and how the trailer is an eyesore on the neighborhood. She says she won't report me to the board and suggests a fine if I remove it immediately. I calmly inform her about the patio construction and how the crew needs to store their tools and materials at night, but she's absolutely foaming at the mouth about how tacky it is to have a trailer in front of the house and, again, it's against the rules. I calmly inform her that I am neither the homeowner nor the owner of the trailer and there isn't much I can do about it, especially at 6:30 p.m. on a Friday night. Nevertheless, she's adamant that I do something. By this point I'm fed up with this woman, who obviously has nothing better to do with her evening than bother her neighbors with bullshit. I look at her and casually ask, just out of curiosity, what's the fine for not picking up after your dog if it poops in someone's lawn? I tell ya, the look on her face at that point was classic. She stuttered for a minute before telling me she would have to look into that. I told her I'd be grateful if she did because my cousin has been suspecting a neighbor of letting their dog poop in his lawn, so he set up a video camera in the window to catch the culprit. Upon hearing that, she got a little flustered and told me to tell the patio crew to hurry up, then she walked away with a huff. A small victory to be sure, but quite satisfying nevertheless. The next one is titled, The Karen That Breeds Minion Karens. My grandparents immigrated to Canada from Italy in the 70s and opened up a restaurant. When they passed away, the restaurant went to my parents. Over the decades they grew and expanded it. I have been working at the restaurant since I was 15. Over time my parents got older and eventually retired, becoming snowbirds, go to Florida for the winters. They left the restaurant to me about a few years ago, but still retaining a small % ownership as an additional revenue stream along with their savings and annuities. Soon as I gained control, I pretty much modernized the old place. Remodeled the restaurant, changed the logo, reached out the local and national papers to put out ads, invited food critics, bloggers, vloggers, etc. It was very slow at first and I began to worry that the loan I took out to do all this was the biggest mistake I had ever done and I ruined 3 generations of my family's business. But eventually it began to work and a local semi-famous YouTube featured us in one of his videos, and that was the catalyst for more people to come and review, and eventually we were seeing 5 by -10x the business we usually get even if it's a Monday. We became a hotspot for major events and it wasn't uncommon for a celebrity to come. On those nights I even arranged for special high-profile chiefs to visit and cook for our guests. Costs a fortune. So during the holidays we were beyond packed. It got to the point where people would have had to make reservations in July to get a table in December. This process took years to get to where we are now. When it gets busy I don't just sit in the back office, I'm on the floor doing whatever needed to be done. Even if that means I greet people, bussing tables or even mopping the floors. Other nights when we have high-profile guests or events I'm in a blazer and am acting in charge though. On one night a group of 6 women walk in. 5 of them look like they are still in their early 20s. And the head of the group looked like she was in her mid-20s. Best theory, she was one of the other 4 girls' older sister or possible an older sorority sister to incoming college freshmen maybe. I was greeting at the door, as they were walking up. Queen Bee Karen was telling the baby Karens on how this place is awesome, food is amazing and there might even be celebrities here. When she came up to me she told me she needed a table for 6. I replied, of course, can I please get the name on the reservation? She looked at me and said, oh, I didn't make one but it's okay, the owner is a personal friend of mine, he said he always has 1 or 2 tables that he keeps open for special guests and said we can have one of those tonight. Now generally this is true of many high-profile restaurants and lately I have been doing that as well, but I had no clue who this woman was and she definitely never spoke to me about any of this. I did get she was trying to get in without a reservation, but she literally picked the worst person she could possibly talk to and try this. I told her, I am sorry but we cannot seat anyone without a reservation, as you can see we do not any seats available. I didn't want to go all out and say I'm the owner and we have never spoke before, so I never promised you a thing because I didn't want to embarrass her in front of the other girls she was with. At first. She then went on and said out loud to one of the other girls to take a picture of me. She will speak to the owner and make sure I'm either cleaning the toilet or fired by the end of the week. The other girls following her lead were like, yeah, kiss your minimum wage job goodbye. I'm not sure if they were in on it with her or they honestly thought she knew the owner. Queen Bee Karen then went on and said, look, you can just give us a table or I can make life very difficult for you, this is not worth losing your job. Constantly pointing, just trying to put me down, saying things like obviously you aren't anyone here because if you were you would know who I am, and never even try to tell me anything other than yes or of course. Constantly trying to belittle me and get that table. At this point it was a long day for me and the way I saw it. I had 3 options. 1. Tell her I'm the owner and just call her out on all of this. 2. Just give her the table and let it be. 3. Teach Queen Bee Karen and her little minions a lesson. I chose option 3 for various reasons. Including some personality flaws I am aware that I have, but I like to think it was at least 50% really wanting to teach her a lesson. I smiled at her, said of course ma'am, follow me please, and I gave her one of the 3 tables we keep open in case a celebrity comes. It happens time to time. I told her I apologize for everything and she is right, it would be simpler to just give her the table. I also told her that first 3 rounds of drinks will be complimentary. I sat them down and personally served them. As they were sitting down I told them we do need one of your credit cards and IDs just to keep on file and we will give it back to you before you leave. Queen Karen gave me her cards, and told the baby Karen minions that tonight was on her. I took their orders and got them their free drinks and told them due to how busy we are tonight there might be a delay on the food. All the girls were thinking of and cared about their free rounds. They ordered their 3 rounds and still no food. They eventually called me and asked me to check on it, the whole time giving me the world's most nasty attitude since even before they ordered. I told them I will check on it but also asked if they would like any more drinks. They ordered 2 more rounds by the time the appetizers arrived. At this point they are all drunk. Having done nothing but drink on an empty stomach most of the night and only have had salads after. As more food arrives the more drinks are ordered. What these girls never realized was they are at our VIP table, which alone costs a few thousand just to sit in, but I didn't charge them for that. What I did charge them for was all the super expensive cocktails they had throughout the whole night except for the first 3 rounds. In addition, the table they were sitting in as mentioned was VIP, so the menus were a bit different. For one, they don't say prices on them, trade secret. And in addition it had certain higher-end menu options such as white truffle, black caviar dishes and specially imported West Coast oysters among other things. At one point in the night I was honestly rethinking what I was doing and thought I might be going too far with these poor girls. They might not know any better, but some things reassured me throughout the night. Such as one of the baby Karens asked me if I felt like my life was worthless since all I ever became was a waiter. Also, one of my other employees told me how they were discussing how to duck with me, to the point that they can just do this whenever they want and I will know to always give them a table. I also overheard them say, he's cute, but I would never date a waiter like that, he is such a pushover. There were a bunch of comments like that the whole night. So I kept on with their life lesson. By the end of the night each girl racked up a bill in the range of $500 minus $600 per girl. When I handed Queen Karen the bill of $4,232.23 with tax and tip included, of course. I have never seen anyone sober up so quickly. She went from laughing and giggling with her friends to nearly in tears. She called me over instantly and asked if this was some kind of joke. I took the bill, looked it over and said, "Oh, yes, I apologize, I will get you the correct bill in a moment." Again she felt a complete sense of relief, thinking she got someone else's bill, called me a ducking idiot and went on to talking to her friends. To be fair, I did make a mistake. I did forget to count her 8th order of a dozen oysters that costs about $120 per order. So I gladly just went back and added it to the order. When I went back to give her the correct bill, she flipped out again. Going crazy. I just asked if there is something on this bill that she didn't order. She and the girls in shock go over every single line of the bill, including the first few lines that show their original 3 rounds which say complimentary. They then took out their phones and line by line went over everything line by line for the 100th time, adding everything up. Extremely rattled, Queen Bee Karen simply said, "1 second, I need to use the washroom." Part of me thought that she might just pull a dine and dash and leave the baby Karens with the bill. But kinda low-key I did in a way remind her we had her ID and CC without making it obvious. I thought she was going run out on the bill. 10 minutes later she comes back with new makeup, obviously she has been crying, and makes up a whole story on how the food was awful, the drinks were bad and so on. Demanding that as bare minimum I should cut the bill in half with the agreement the baby Karens will chip in, even though she originally told them the night would be on her. Then, as if a light bulb went off in her head, she again mentioned her relationship with the owner as if it were to give me additional incentive to cut the bill in half. Holding back a grin at this point, I told her no. Just no, I can't change the bill. She whips out her phone and shows me a series of texts with someone called my restaurant's name owner, which pretty much I realized was what she was doing in the bathroom. Just probably changed one of the other Karen minions' contact name and deleted previous texts. So start this new script. I read them, then clicked on contact into and told her that's not the owner's cell number. Her reply was, "He has multiple phones for business and stuff, of course you don't know all his numbers." I remember, wow, this girl thought of everything except I'm the actual owner. I told her, how about this, if we call him and he says that it's okay to take 50% off the bill, then I'll do it. Her reply was a yelling and screaming over the time where the few remaining customers all began to start looking, and I knew, okay, time to end this. I told her already in a less accommodating voice, "Cut the crap, little girl, you don't know the owner, you have never been here before, and if you keep yelling I will call the police." Her demeanor changed and she was trying to defend herself the best she could. My reply to her weak comebacks was, "My grandparents founded this restaurant, my family has been running this place for generations. I have worked here almost my entire life. I am the one and only owner of this restaurant, and I have never once seen you, heard of you, and I definitely never made a stranger I don't know and have never met before tonight any promises." The mini Karens were just frozen and didn't even know how to react. Queen Bee Karen was in tears. I said, "Now I gave you the table you wanted, one of your specially reserved tables for high-end clients, which I didn't charge you for, and I gave you 3 rounds of free drinks. If you don't pay your bill I will call the cops and hand them your ID." In tears, Queen Karen signed the bill and the mini Karens took out their purses to give her whatever cash they had, which equaled to maybe a couple of $100, with the promise to pay her back more. 2 days later a man walks into my restaurant fuming and asks one of my bartenders to speak to me. I was in the back office for a bit working, so he waited a good half hour for me. He was Queen Bee Karen's father. She was with him to keeping her head down. I took them both to my office, showed him highlights of the security cameras, which were especially good quality of audio because they were in the VIP, which we had to keep good records of because we have had other unrelated incidents before. So I showed him most of it, their comments, their orders, their everything. When all was said and done he stormed out with her and was screaming at her the whole time they were walking away. Haven't seen or heard from either of them since, but the original bill I gave them, the one that didn't count the $120 oysters, is framed on my desk. Side note, I didn't lose as much overhead on the table and 3 rounds as you might think. The table was originally supposed to be empty, so I didn't lose anything since I didn't expect to gain anything to begin with, and the overhead for the food and other drinks more than covered the loss on the 3 free first rounds. The last one is titled, Threaten My Pregnant Wife Over Parking? Enjoy your misdemeanor. Hoa bully. This was last year. I just sold my home in my Hoa. About 5 years ago I bought a 1,500 square feet townhome condo in an up-and-coming town. Right in the downtown area. This is a valuable property with home prices having increased 35% since I purchased. This was a wonderful area in walking distance of everything I loved as a single bachelor. When I moved in, all my neighbors were wonderful. We all got along great except for one person. She belonged to the Hoa board but was moving on because you can only serve 8 years. We'll call her Gimpy J. Gimpy J is a 65-plus-year-old widow whose husband died unexpectedly from a heart attack. She doesn't have much to do. She met a man online and moved on, and I was happy for her. Talking to my passive neighbors, I hear bits and pieces of why things are at the Hoa because of Gimpy J and another woman who had to move because of age. On the board, the two of them bully residents. They change the landscaping from mulch to pine needles. They stop upkeep on the pool deck because they hate kids. They reported one house for anything and everything because their kids were too loud. She bullied a woman with MS because Gimpy J was feeding feral cats and attracting raccoons and opossums near our homes, and animal control was called. Residents did not like her. I got married and wife has been living with me for 2 years now. At this point, we are very happy. During this time, Gimpy J began spending more and more time with her new boyfriend. He lives about an hour away from our house in the country. She would initially spend the weekend, then a week there, until she began living there all the time with very little time spent here. Maybe 15 minutes to 2 hours a month would be at our complex. Now at our complex there is only one rule on parking: each resident is entitled to 2 spots close to their building, but not necessarily in front of your unit, and there is no limit to parking spots you may occupy. Close to it is the key word. We have new folks on the board who are all under 40 years of age, and the place is starting to get spruced up. We have some friends over regularly and they park in front of our unit. Gimpy J had 2 hip replacements done and we had not seen her in about 7 months. In our little area of the complex consists of 8 townhomes that face each other, 4 on one side, 4 on the other. There are 8 spots for 3 homes and a handicapped spot for one of our neighbors. Gimpy J started coming back around in January for longer periods, a day on the weekend to go out downtown or to visit friends. She started complaining that we were in her spots. Again, there are no assigned spots. We were willing to move our friends' vehicles for her to another empty spot, that is until she started occupying 2 spots at a time with her vehicle. This behavior continued as she would come in taking 2 spots anytime she was here. The rules in the master deed says no vehicle can take more than 1 spot without written permission from the board of directors or property management group, and cannot continue for more than 2 days with permission. This was to account for residents moving in and out. Suddenly that spring my wife had a medical issue and was hospitalized for 4 days and on disability for 8 weeks. My mum was the only family member on both sides that had the capability of coming down to where we lived to help us out. She drove down and we needed to occupy 3 spots. I promptly let our property management company know and the board of directors know what was happening, providing them with my mum's make, model, and plate number, and that she would be here 6 to 8 weeks, just in case anyone had an issue. Gimpy J's first time home in 6 weeks, we had a car in front of her house but she had room for her vehicle. She marched over and banged, and I mean it was loud, on the door demanding we move the car, and tried to open my front door and walk in my home. Yes, she tried to enter my home. It shook my dog who peed herself, it was that loud, who in turn growled and chased her out. I promptly told her there was no assigned parking and the rule is 1 car 1 spot. We would moved a car out of respect one last time and saw she occupied 2 spots with it, per usual. The next time it happened, 2 weeks later, we refused to move our vehicle. We also began taking pictures for our records and communicating with our Hoa of Gimpy J's erratic behavior. She continued to arrive, bang on our door, scream at us for having a car parked in her spot. One time banging on the door, she dented the frame with her keys. A few additional times when we were not home she would come in and park occupying 2 spots. I would take more pictures, for my records in case something happened because of her erratic behavior. Finally it happened. About this time last year, I was at the gym and I get a call from my mum and my wife, frantic that someone is going to tow my wife's car. I drive home as fast as I can and it's Gimpy J's boyfriend's son and his girlfriend, whom we have never met. This jackass, who doesn't live here and has no business here, is screaming at us and insulting my pregnant wife and mother. My mother-in-law pays $XXX a month for these spots. You duckers are breaking the rules. I'm a tow that their SUV. All while drinking beer. Now we know he can't do anything except scream and try to intimidate us outside. He calls his mother-in-law, who is not married to his father, about the situation. Gimpy J drives an hour to our complex. When she gets here she parks her car behind all three of ours and gets out blocking us in, and I had enough. I quickly snapped some pictures. I called the police. I will not feel unsafe or be harassed in my neighborhood by people who do not live there, or are barely there. Gimpy J realizes I called the police and moves her car. I print out all my documentation, pictures, and communication from the hoa. I shower quickly because I'm disgusting from the gym and throw on a nice polo shirt and shorts. Pregnant wife sits in her rocking chair and my mother sits calmly at the kitchen table. The police arrive and we can see them hollering, waving arms widely, and screaming. The police come to the door and we kindly open up. Gimpy J tries to walk in before I block her and ask her to leave my property and invite the police officers inside. We apologize that we even have to call them over something so petty, but our neighbor is acting crazy and her behavior has been escalating. We explain what is happening, show them communication from the hoa, show them pictures. The officer quickly had enough of these white trash pieces of crap. He imposes a no trespass order on my porch and will not let her near my property. If she steps foot on our walkway she is in violation of the order and she will be arrested. We watch him go back out and explain calmly to her and she starts screaming along with her boyfriend's kid and his girlfriend. This goes on for a while and the officer calls for backup and a second car arrives promptly. Gimpy J promptly declares it's her property too, she pays her fees and that he can't do that because everything is community property outside of a home. She goes and marches up to my stoop and he arrests her. Charges her with disorderly conduct and harassment. The police then tell Gimpy J's boyfriend's son to go home. He gets in his truck with his white trash girlfriend and they drive off. As soon as he hits the road outside of our complex, the second police officer pulls him over, for DUI. That's right, the drunken guy screaming at my wife and mother had been drinking the entire time and was loaded. Police couldn't do anything in the complex, but could when he hit the main road. Both of them were hauled off the jail and we stopped hearing from them about parking. 2 days later Gimpy J and her boyfriend show up to the complex and they park her boyfriend's car in our lot and leave it, parked in one spot to ensure it's hers. Well, they drive off and we don't hear from them in a week and no one is home. Since Gimpy J's boyfriend does not live here and his car is abandoned, I called the hoa to report it. They came and towed his SUV. Gimpy J put her house on the market 8 weeks later. Duck HOAs. Thanks for listening.